curious to see what'll happen and how it'll turn out.
I'd say 50% of my time examining, and the other 50% I'd really like to get my hands dirty and do some work, some gardening, and learn how things are working ecologically there.
I want clarity, because I kind of feel like I'm walking around in a fog.
The Community Studies program is a joint venture between Pacific Lutheran University in the USA and the Findhorn Foundation. The Findhorn Foundation was founded as a spiritual centre in 1962 in the north of Scotland. Today, over 300 people form a thriving community, which is a working model for sustainable living. The community becomes the classroom in which academic studies and personal experience come together. The students discover the joys and challenges of living cooperatively. In this program, they don't really know what they're getting into.
Well, it started with 3 adults and 3 children coming and living in this caravan because we had nowhere else to live. And we were on national assistance, which to me was the lowest rung of the ladder. For 3 years, we lived like hermits. And when I say that, we lived in that caravan. We had no one visiting us. We used to meditate and attune and live together in very, very close quarters. And that's a good way to have all those rough edges smoothed off.
In 1962, the nerve centre of the community started with a holiday caravan, where the 3 founders, Peter and Eileen Caddy and Dorothy McLean, lived and worked together for several years. In the process of creating a garden, through meditation, attunement and working, they created a centre of learning. And Findhorn has remained so since those early days.
Hey, welcome to the park.
The first community challenge is for each to decide who gets what room.
What do you think?
This is nice. This is really nice. I'm excited.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's a lot of people.
I could see myself with Kelly. I just think it would be fun.
Yeah. I could see myself with Sarah, I could see myself with Willa, I could see myself with several people here, and it's not just one.
Let's just close our eyes now.
At Findhorn, a moment of silence is often customary before making decisions. In the first week, students take part in group building activities. It's where they start forming a sense of their own community within a bigger community.
I loved the group discovery games because it was like the first week we were all together, and they really helped us just break down any barriers we had and be silly together at times and learn to trust each other in a way. We got to know each other in a different way than just verbally communicating, and give to one another and be honest and just have fun.
studies program is an attempt to take students out of the sometimes dry closet of academia into a place where thinking, critical thinking, where open heart and the safety that needs to be accompanied by opening one's heart, and an experience of spirituality can all be wed in the context of an ecological consciousness.
I am asked and called to be both open and vulnerable and honest, this real honesty that I think is expected here. And when I first came, it scared me to death, really.
I tend to look for affirmation from other people instead of from myself.
The community provides a context for holistic education, which speaks to the student's emotional and spiritual life within an academic framework.
I learned a lot about like group process and group psychology, and that's something that's never really discussed in classes at school. And I found out that it's really important to find out exactly what's going on in a group. I hope that I can take it back and I can apply some of what I've learned here.
It's like that changes the dialogue immediately because you're addressing what's going on a feeling level. And actually what happens is that if you don't address the process, you'll never reach agreement on the content. And actually, sometimes a very short amount of time spent addressing the process clears things sufficiently that all of the arguments around this suddenly disappear. So in terms of time efficiency, paying attention to process is always the best way to go, in my opinion.
Students are expected to produce written work weekly, which via the internet they send to the professor at the university, who helps monitor their academic progress.
It's like an education, but it's an education from people instead of books. And it's also an experience where I think in university you learn from books. And the professors try to incorporate a hands-on learning, and what this program does is offer learning with hands-on and also book learning.
Part of my Findhorn education right here.
Work is part of community life and part of the educational experience.
We want tea! We want tea! Hi, Sam! Sam, come here outside.
I've learned how to pull and spin and dye wool here. I mean, we don't learn that in New York growing up.
Community life is more fully experienced by working in one of its service departments. At Findhorn, people not only focus on the job at hand, but on the well-being of each member of the team. The workplace is a place of personal growth. It's where the concept of interconnectedness really comes to life.
How does it feel working in the garden?
It feels really good to be outside every morning.
Oh, it's just too cold to be outside, but it's really nice to be working and getting sweaty and being in the dirt.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to learn so much about myself here. 90% of work is dealing with people, and that you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't know how to work in a work community or whatnot and get along with people, nobody's going to hire you and want you. You go? More? Some more, yeah. Veggies are stuffed.
Combining community work with academic studies is definitely demanding.
I just think for me the biggest one has been tolerance.
How's it been living with everybody here?
From the classroom, students take home and apply decision-making tools to their everyday issues of living together By bringing ideas into the context of experience, students acquire insight into the workings of community decision-making.
So yeah, I wanted to just say a little bit about where we are at Findhorn in these 4 different areas of sustainability in what we call the eco-village. The first one we might call spiritual sustainability, and that's very strong here. It's very much part of our roots. We started as a spiritual center, and really spiritual sustainability is much more about the things that are bigger than us, that take us out of our personal self and put us into a larger context of life. The cultural and social sustainability is about being part of a community, of honoring ourselves as human beings and the needs that we have as human beings, to grow and to have opportunities to be creative and to interact socially, to celebrate together. And that's something that we do here at Findhorn a lot in the community, is to join together and to come together with a sense of purpose and to celebrate special events like the founding of the community or the celebrating of the changing of the seasons. Then there's the economic side of what we're doing. We now have about 35 small businesses, including the foundation, with a wide diversity of economic activity that's also growing a lot. There's many people coming now that are bringing their own businesses and continuing to diversify our economy. And the final thing is the more physical side, the ecological sustainability. We're growing now between 50 and 70% of our fresh food, both within our own gardens here in the park and in the local area. We have a community-supported agricultural project which has been really successful. And that's a system which allows us to be more connected to the growing of our own food, knowing that it's organic and locally produced. We're also producing about 30% of our energy from renewable sources, and we're hoping to increase that to 90% within the next 10 years. We've built about 22 buildings to a very high ecological standard, both in terms of the natural materials that we're using and also energy conservation. And we're also treating our own wastewater on site with the living machine.
The purpose of the Azola on the surface.
The living machine is a greenhouse, where tanks filter water through a complex food chain of plants and creatures, demonstrating a sewage system that's eco-friendly, producing water well above the UK treatment standards. 20% of electricity comes from the windmill. 2 more are to be purchased, which will supply 60 to 70% overall energy.
Is about taking risks.
It made me clear in how I make a difference, and that's by living responsibly, living not with the tiny footprint, as they say, but living honestly, decently, ethically, with the earth.
Trees for Life is a charity within Findhorn dedicated to the regeneration of the Caledonian forest. In 1991, they were declared the National Conservation Project of the Year. Students can make regular field trips, giving them the opportunity to learn about ecological concerns within the highlands of Scotland.
And I found the courage inside myself to start putting my most important and deepest values, my cares for people, for the planet, for our future, into daily practice in my life.
How do you live your life spiritually from day to day?
Before enlightenment, stocking shelves. After enlightenment, stocking shelves. And trying to be in the moment with my products.
I think every day has a special challenge in itself, and just to take this challenge and go through it is
one part of living spiritual.
Somebody tell you I live my life spiritually from day to day? Is this a rumor somebody started?
There's no use saying there's only one way, because there's not. There are many, many paths leading to God. And I feel that each person is free to choose.
It's been
a massive
divinely difficult.
So are you frustrated at me for speaking? Is that?
Well, it's directed at you because you were the next person. It could have been anybody else. I'm just frustrated with the process as well right now.
Okay. So what do you want to happen with that?
Students are encouraged to learn from any conflicts they may have with themselves, the teachers or the community. Real life becomes their example, giving tools for communication, self-observation and conflict resolution.
I find your style very abrasive, and I'm usually hurt by it.
I don't want Evan's insecurity and intimidation issue to be projected onto me. He will do that, and he will be intimidated by me. That is fine. But don't blame me for it. I'm sorry if my abrasiveness scares you or intimidates you.
My life revolves around 11 other people versus the normal 1 or 2 that it's always revolved around. So it's been very difficult in that respect. But it's also taught me how to adapt to other people and how to go with the flow.
It's not a question of right or wrong. It's like, oh, wow, this is it.
I feel like I'm just like this outlet of emotion or something.
How to simultaneously to be able to nurture and hold and love, and also say no.
When living together, emotions can come up as people get to know each other. Barriers come down as people get to be more honest. Difficult feelings arise. Part of the group experience is to let those feelings emerge. Through ongoing meetings, feelings are bared and sensitivities get touched.
None of this applies to me, and I don't know where hardly any of you are coming.
Okay.
I don't know where they're
So
coming.
maybe we can just be like still then.
Personally, I don't want to feel like that. Like after I expressed that she intimidated me, she didn't intimidate me anymore. Because,
I'm just getting really sick of everybody.
my experience with you is that you're sick of me, or you're sick of us.
Because I just said that I'm sick of everybody does not mean leave me alone. I mean, I hope you all still continue to annoy me.
It is an environment where there is no hiding. Everything that happens in the teaching, no matter what the content, no matter what the events that are going on, are all based on relationship. And that's relationships of the students to themselves, to the focalizers, to the community, a particular concept or idea to an author. In that context, it is very powerful. Unconscious motivations come to the surface. Issues and conflicts are part of the process that exists between the person and the content they're studying and needs to be addressed. It's not just about what it is you come to know, it is how it is you are come to be known. And rather than focusing all the attention on the thing that you're looking at, you focus attention on the looking. So it's that invisible thing that is in the middle between the person and the thing that they are in relationship to that needs to be looked at. That is sort of the dynamic part of being alive. It's the dynamic part of thinking and knowing, and that's the part that the program focuses on. So in that sense, it's a very unique kind of academic experience.
When you finally get over something in the group and make something work. It gives you this really good feeling in your heart that you've been a part of an accomplishment, that you've ironed something out, and that you've learned something together. And it's a similar way with the community as a whole. You become part of something larger, and you actually feel as a participant of like a larger system here, a larger ecosystem.
The experience of relationship within the fabric of community can deepen students' awareness into the world of natural relationships. One of the founding principles of the Findhorn community was co-creation with nature. Creativity is the means by which this principle is brought into form.
I think the thing that makes human beings special is the fact that they are creative people, capable of imagination and capable of, in some ways, so the mythology says, imitating the godly act of creating. It's innately there in that people are involved. It's particularly innately there in the sense that young people are involved, since so much of what they are doing is creating themselves, one hopes artfully. The community certainly has a history of being very creative and has some facilities. What I want to do is to be able to make the experience of art become much more conscious and become much more material. I would like very much for painting, drawing, pottery making, weaving, dance, song, all to be a piece of how it is that we not only express what we're feeling, but also experience the world.
It makes me happy to think that, like, I have an effect on the world.
I feel this new strength, this sort of courage that I don't think I've ever had before.
I don't need to accept just what is normal and what is expected of me. That there's just so many more options.
I think the real strength is when you stand at yourself and look at yourself and you can feel at home with yourself.
It gradually sneaks up on you and sort of embraces you, how much everything here is interconnected. It sneaks up behind your back and puts its arm around you, and you start to notice it. And finally you're getting this full-scale bear hug from just the whole connectedness of the place.
Learning that I'm a part of a whole and not just a part.
One word to explain your experience. Astounding.
Complex.
Magnifique!
That's French.
Cookie.
Full. That's my word.
Life altering. Oh, it's two. It was altering. That's good. Yeah.
Non-judgment.
Unstoppable.
Rewarding.
Very interesting.
Confronting.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Amazing. With my favorite word, pulchritudious. Magic. That's the word. It's been magic. I can't describe it.
Over. At this end, can you say a few words?